Becky Cloonan, Michael W. Conrad, and Michael Avon Emming conclude their hyper-violent time travel story as Midnighter, Apollo, and Mr. Miracle lead one final assault on Andrej Trojan in a bid to stop the villain from destroying all life in the future. Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad finally get to finish their Midnighter storyline that has been building in the back pages of Action Comics and was a continuation of Future State. This oversized annual wraps up everything in a tidy bow, but leaves room should they want to do more with these characters somewhere down the line, and I have a feeling we're going to see more of them. I thoroughly enjoyed the trip into Lucas Trent's mind, quite literally at points, and the writers fleshing out the characters' motivations and feelings and how Lucas is a little more complicated than people give him credit for, and it often leads to people like Trojan underestimating him. Cloonan and Conrad also build out Trojan as a complicated villain who is still rooted in wacky cartoon character villainy, but there is also a little more to him and why he's doing what he is doing, coming from a pretty genuine and a little bit of a sympathetic place. You take that great character work and combine it with some great time travel shenanigans and an interesting buddy cop dynamic with Mr. Miracle, and you have the makings for a pretty fantastic story. Michael Avon Emming returns as artist for the storyline and again brings his very distinct style to the characters, imbuing them with more great weird 60s era spy thriller aesthetics that got really crazy here for a couple of those pages, especially when we're looking into Midnighter's mind and the mind of Andrej Trojan. It was really fantastic, and I love all like the colors, like your purples and your blues, and then you've got Mr. Miracle who stands out amongst everyone else, including Apollo with his great yellow, green and red costume. It was fantastic. Midnighter 2021 Annual was a great cap-off to Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad's story, which we've been getting for quite some time, stretching all the way back to Future State. The issue wrapped everything up very nicely and left room if they ever want to do some sequel work, and hopefully they do, because the combination of Mr. Miracle, Midnighter, Apollo, and this great 60s era spy thriller aesthetic was just wonderful and something I think the characters desperately needed. I'm going to give this issue a 9 out of 10. Midnighter 2021 Annual finds Apollo confronting Trojan's monstrous creations while Midnighter fills Mr. Miracle in on who the blonde Superman is. Apollo wants to know what all of this is about, unhappy his husband is keeping secrets from him, so he just stands back and watches as Lucas and Shiloh continue their strained battle against the monsters. Future Trojan tells Lucas that Apollo was bound to find out sooner or later, asking if he'll mind sharing Lucas with the villain's supercomputer. Midnighter tells him to shut up as Shiloh complains about Apollo calling him Captain Pajamas, since after all, they are all wearing odd attire. Midnighter is overrun, and Shiloh calls for Apollo to help him, but the man knows Lucas wanted to handle this on his own. Midnighter rips the monsters' heads off, wanting to get on with finding Trojan. Mr. Miracle soon learns the cyborgs are enlightened followers of Trojan made anew, meaning they have consciousness and sentience. He thinks that Midnighter apologizing to Apollo might help in the situation, but the hero knows the price of that apology is still too high. Shiloh does it on his behalf, but the hero still refuses, so he calls him childish, knowing Lucas and he would appreciate it. Apollo relents, making short work of the entire army of monsters before confronting Lucas, demanding he explain himself and let him in for once. Trojan and his scientist meanwhile speed away from the base, and the villain knows his creations will win the day, and if they don't, he's got contingencies to ensure his plan remains, and while the Earth isn't ready to transcend, it will be soon. Soon some first responders arrive at the base thanks to the explosions, so the heroes plan their escape, not wanting to be seen. Midnighter opens a door, prompting Shiloh to demand if he could do that from the beginning, why did he have him pick the locks? Lucas says that his notes told him that every other time he attempted this loop, Mr. Miracle died. The heroes disappear as the men begin searching the rubble, causing a huge explosion that obliterates all evidence. Over beers at Apollo's flat, Midnighter comes clean with him, telling him that he didn't tell him because he failed, revealing all of the things he knows about Trojan and his new isotope neurodium, which will wipe out all organic life from existence. He also reveals that while he is Lucas Trent, he's not Apollo's Lucas Trent, since he is from the future, and he switched places with the younger one who was on Warworld, and now they are stuck in a paradox since every time they do this, people around him die and he's just trying to get it right this time. Apollo wants him to show him trust, but Trojan thinks it's about time he showed Lucas his own story, showing Midnighter the sad origins of his life and how after his mother's illness, he would no longer be a servant to the inevitable. He remembers fulfilling his mother's dying wishes and pulled the plug on her life support. Lucas lashes out at Trojan for showing him that, confusing Apollo, who thinks that he is talking to him. Midnighter barges into his office and gets the blueprints for Trojan's chrysalis and robot skull, showing them to Apollo, who calms him down since they won't be failing this again. As they discuss who dies every time, the house is attacked by more of Trojan's creations. The villain meanwhile arrives at his home, wanting to continue their plans from there. He screams at his scientist partner as he asks if he has the mother box, telling the man that this is all his design and it's all going as he planned. Apollo meanwhile finally realizes what Lucas said is to be true, knowing that he's from the future but he is still Lucas. He kisses his husband, wanting no more secrets between them, as future Trojan knows he will be the only secret left. The team know that they are heading for Trojan's home next, but Midnighter wants to go alone, but the others refuse to let him do this alone, and Lucas doesn't fight it, knowing that he tried as he opened a door to the mansion. Thanks to the countless times he's been there, Midnighter knows a straightforward attack never works, and this time they have to do the unexpected, which is just to knock on the front door. The team are invited in, where Trojan has laid out dinner for them. Trojan tries to impress the heroes by knowing who they all are, thanks to quantum probability, knowing how certain events will go. He reveals he has a solution to all of their current paradox problems, and Midnighter says that he has one as well, shooting Trojan in the face. The villain doesn't die, however, having anticipated this, so the supercomputer has assumed control of his body, and his brain is useless now. Midnighter says that he's got more bullets as he reloads, and future Trojan thinks maybe he should listen to his past self. Trojan reveals his own mother box, calling it a step-mother box, as a boom tube is activated, dumping out the Midnighter from this original timeline. Trojan wants to propose a resolution to their shared problems, knowing now with the box, Midnighter can return to his future state and escape the loop. Present-day Midnighter wonders what the catch is, thinking that he'll forget this or ignore the villain's genocidal tendencies. Future Midnighter thinks that he should rip the computer from Trojan's head and shove it up his ass, asking Apollo what he should do. Trojan points out that if they try anything, the switch his scientist holds will be activated and release sarin gas, killing the Midnighter in the boom tube, and in turn will kill the future Midnighter as well. Midnighter isn't so sure, wanting one last dance as he disarms the scientist of the control. Trojan knows that he can't help himself, unleashing his robots, and the heroes begin ripping them apart with little trouble, despite Shiloh voicing his concern at the sentient robots. Trojan dodges Midnighter's blows, but the hero manages to grab the villain, saying that while his present-day self isn't upgraded, he is, however. Trojan realizes it's the computer chip that the hero stole from him, surprised since he was sure his body would reject it. Midnighter pins him to the table with a knife, but the villain frees himself, knowing that that would have hurt had he not turned off his pain receptors. To continue their fight, as future Trojan notes how very much the same Lucas and Trojan are thanks to their lack of empathy. As the heroes battle on, the present-day Midnighter awakens in the boom tube as the scientists retrieve the remote, pressing the button. The sarin gas is released as Mr. Miracle frees Lucas with a single button press of the boom tube, telling the man you just gotta have the right touch with them. Apollo is happy to see his Midnighter is back, not guessing how in a few years Lucas will be such a broody man. The two kiss as the future Midnighter continues strangling Trojan, wanting to find out how much the man can take. Future Trojan knows this has gone on far too long, pulling Lucas into his own mind, where both present-day and future Trojan confront him, revealing that he killed the present-day Trojan's body, so he transferred his consciousness into Midnighter's supercomputer with the future Trojan. They ask how this makes Midnighter feel, as the hero knows that they really went off script this time around. Future Trojan says that getting to experience all of the people who truly love Midnighter has been an eye-opening experience, having only ever known one love, and since then he's cultivated devotion for those who will give their lives to an unkillable idea. They know, however, Midnighter can be killed, and when their end comes, it will be from their ultimate enemy, time, and so while the memory of it fades, Trojan will remain to mark its passage. Midnighter thinks that he's full of shit, as Trojan knows that he can't talk since Midnighter will soon be nothing more than an automaton for them. Midnighter reminds them that they are stuck in his mind and his body, and he's the one making choices around there. His mind begins swallowing up both Trojans in dark water, as future Trojan reminds him everyone he knows will end up dead and he won't have changed anything, ranting about being unstoppable as the water takes him. Midnighter is awoken by a slap to the face by his younger self as Shiloh asks if the two Midnighters touching breaks some rules of time travel, but Midnighter says that he's actually broken all of the rules. Future Midnighter knows that he can't leave since this isn't where he belongs, and Apollo understands, hugging him as the present day Midnighter coughs awkwardly, breaking it up. The two Midnighters shake hands, and the future version tells his younger self to make sure this doesn't happen again. He says his goodbyes to Mr. Miracle, who he says if he's ever back in time, he can look him up. Midnighter hates goodbyes as the heroes disperse, leaving him alone with both Trojans still inside his mind, who say that they will accomplish great things together since they are multitudes. Lucas knows that for someone who has spent a lot of time in his head, Trojan really knows very little about him, and the villain's lack of empathy made it easy to hide his true feelings, knowing that he doesn't have emotions so he wouldn't understand them or recognize them. Lucas opens his bag, revealing it contains a giant bomb as Trojan tries to get him to think this through, but Midnighter has, wondering if he dies there, will he die or reappear in the future where he belongs, hoping Trojan is excited about this experiment. Lucas grabs the trigger as Trojan says that he spent his entire life trying to stop himself from feeling, but right now at this bitter end, he realizes what he was missing. Lucas tells him to shut up as he blows himself up while the scientist meanwhile manages to escape the building in time. Later on, Midnighter and Apollo talk about what happened, with Apollo revealing that the future Midnighter blew up the house, and they couldn't even identify the hero in the rubble. Meanwhile, the scientist is revealed to have had Trojan in his mind the entire time, reactivating it as it continues to work on his robotic skull, taking back control of the body as the scientist says that it's been a great honor to be of service, and now he is the passenger and Trojan can take the wheel.